Hello and welcome to the Kerfuffle Podcast with me, David Mintz, and in the pink corner is none other than the heavyweight champion of the prop tech world, Mr. Simon Whale.
Hello, David. How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm good.
How's the post-Brexit Whale going?
I feel very different actually now.
You look very different.
Less full of hate, more unified, getting on with things. It's all done and dusted. 10% Boris bounce. I'm feeling good.
Really? Are you going to make a stunning success of this?
No, I'm going to work from inside to destroy it and say I told you so for the next 15 years.
Great. So the status quo has not changed whatsoever. In the studio with us today, we have a game of two halves, basically.
But why? Tell them why.
Because we have a bumper crop of guests.
We do, but why are we doing this, David? Why are we better than the Estate Agency Podcast? We want to give back, don't we? That's what we want to do.
We do.
Not take.
We do. We want to add value, give back, and we want to make your January the best you ever had.
It's February.
Shit. Okay. Should we just get on
detail,
with it?
Who cares about detail? Never mind.
Fine.
Or we could save it till next year.
We can do. We can do. So, with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our guests. We've got Louise Jeffries and Jason Lee from SDL Auctions.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
We never really clap. I think we should do a clap, don't we?
Yeah,
okay.
Well
done.
The first clap I've had.
And now we boo.
And we're also joined by Suzanna Mavity from Acaboom.
Acaboom.
Hello.
Did I pronounce
Hello.
it right?
You did.
Okay.
And do it for Dom.
And do
And
it
we're
for
going to
Dom.
ask you a lot about that later on.
Yeah. Later on.
Fantastic.
But firstly, we're going
She's
to
got the
take
clap,
care
yeah.
of some news. And I think the most significant piece of news that I can think of, Vuber, the lovely, lovely people at Vuber, announced their 10 property influencers to put on your radar last week. And the Property Academy were there, and James Dearsley, who's there for reasons that you'll explain to me later on, and Property Industry Eye, obviously. And number 10 is Kerfuffle.
It is incredible, isn't it?
That's
How
fantastic.
it burst onto the scene.
I even get a mention in there. Listen to his regular podcasts. That's me. That's me right there.
Yeah.
I am part of the 10 most influential people in
Look,
the
I
world.
think you've done a fantastic job in making me better.
No, I think so. I'm adding that value.
But it was nice, and thank you again, Ed and Mead. Fantastic Vuber, one of the best suppliers around, changing the industry out there. So thank you for that. We take any and all smoke blowing, by the way. So please do say anything about us, and you will get repeated ad nauseum.
Fantastic. So should we read some proper news now?
Go on.
Okay. Well, I'd like to... This is from the national press. It's not just ripped off from Property Industry Eye. That's not what we do
we
here.
can deviate.
Okay.
We're flexible enough.
So this week, we have picked up on a new website called Deus.com.
Not heard of it. What is it?
This is going to make your
Okay.
Valentine's come true. Basically, this is a website that allows you to order hotel rooms by the hour during the day.
Why do you need that long?
Wow. Just in case, you know.
By
If
the
if
hour?
romance overtakes you midday and you want to check into a
Sorry, that's
hotel.
how they're actually marketing it, or is this just literally you want a kip, a fiesta, quick fiesta?
The website actually asks, why not send her an invitation to meet in the hotel?
That's so seedy.
They're
I
saying
like the idea of a sleep, though. That's quite
That's
good.
magic,
It's a
isn't
great
it?
idea.
I'm
Looking for
all
an
at that
hour's
stage
nap.
where that's better than the alternative.
And isn't Fiesta a magazine? Shouldn't you mean siesta?
Well, look, I'm not. I was getting into the whole Brexit thing of forgetting, all that. But yes, you're quite right. Yeah,
But,
it was all Del Boy.
apparently this is a French-owned site, so they're very forward-thinking.
Of course it was.
And one of several that have sprung up to service demand for so-called micro stays. So that's what it's called now.
I think it's a really good idea.
It's not dirty. It's a good way to make use of hotel rooms that generally are not being used during the day. My question is, if you're checking in for an hour, I've stayed in a hotel room that you've stayed in before. How much carnage can you cause in an hour?
That's a lot, isn't it? Really, it's not going to work for them on that model.
I think they're going to
The
end up
room
losing money on that.
276 at the Lancaster is forever written off. They just walled it up.
Right, straight into some property news, and there's a bit of a shake-up going on at Purple Bricks this week.
More.
So they've removed a layer of management. They've moved some people around. And if you read,
Is that removed a layer of management in the mafia sense, sort of?
I think so. Somebody got the kiss of death.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone found their Fredo and they moved them on.
You look very mafioso, if you don't mind me saying. I probably shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Is that just North Manchester?
Thank you.
So-
I'm dressing up for the show. I'm making an effort. Thanks for coming in your pajamas again. It's great.
Elasticated pants, my friend, the future.
Everybody's friend, elasticated pants. Okay, you've got some news that you wanted to raise.
Well, cheerfully, heart attacks are more likely to happen on a Monday. So I thought that was particularly interesting. Because, heart attacks apparently increased by 20% on a Monday. And I thought that was particularly interesting considering how much everyone bitches and moans about it on a Sunday night. But realistically, if you're there on your social media and you're saying, oh, God, it's Monday, shouldn't you be getting a different job? Or am I being a bit unfair?
I think it's about having a rest on a Sunday and then having to get back. So the trick is to not have a rest.
But it's not about not looking forward to Mondays. Surely Monday is I'm desperate to get out of the house. It's like Mondays when you're right back into it again.
As you say, if people don't like their worlds on a Monday to Friday, then they've got to get out.
There you are. So the most common time, just so you know, is between 4 and 10 a.m. Suzanna, have you ever seen 10 a.m?
I have, thank you very much, Simon.
Yeah, okay.
Regularly.
I just wonder what else was going to be, constipated Tuesdays or, sort of whether you could extend that through the week as to what's more likely to happen.
Well, really, Monday to Friday are your weekends, really, anyway, aren't they, Simon?
Thank you.
So
I am.
And how I've managed to stop myself on the Wednesday, I don't know.
Okay. In more national news. So this is just a very odd story, Simon. So 2 jurors received suspended jail sentences after they defied judges' instructions by researching the difference between murder and manslaughter online with the trial in progress. So basically these guys had sat in on the trial and decided that they didn't actually know the difference between murder and manslaughter and decided to Google it. That sets a worrying precedent in the legal world because if you're clearly their web browser history has been violated by the courts here.
That's not good.
Can you imagine if we were to open up your web browsing history to court sanctions?
It was, it's the end of the world, isn't it? Skynet.
I don't think we'd make another show after that. In other news, BAFTA are trying to shake up their awards by making it more inclusive. So, and we've discussed this.
What, giving it to a woman or a black person?
I think it's
Don't be so ridiculous.
Primarily, I think there's plenty.
Spread it around to somebody outside of the South.
I think there's plenty of women, but they'd like to see more, particularly in sort of directors' roles. But they are talking about people of colour. Yes.
Okay. Good.
And so, and we discussed very briefly during the week that was something that you might want to see happen in the property industry as well.
Actually, we're terrible, aren't we? Because we're not really living up to our own high standards here, are we?
We're not fantastic.
No, we're not. Okay. But then that does make us get into some weird affirmative action thing where you and I go searching through the industry. Anyway, no, I'm thinking this through too much.
We can do it. We can make change happen.
It is. I'm being very honest. It is crap, isn't it? This industry is particularly poor at certain demographics.
It's pretty white, middle-class, male-dominated world. We've got a couple of freaks around the table now, Suzanna and myself, Unfortunately, the rest of you three all are in that demographic.
Yeah. We talk about it.
Trump's ideal voters, really, aren't we? I know. You go to all of the awards, they're the exact same, aren't they? Mm-hmm. It seems to be the agents suddenly get everyone out of the property management department and the lovely ladies there, but... Yep. Not enough people running businesses, are there? So nope. You've got fantastic exceptions like Sarah Maines, Julie Twist down in Manchester is a great age as well. But really,
Jackie Quinn.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. But at the very top, in terms of CEOs, is that down to just the specialisation that it's normally come down to that most women tend to default onto the letting side of things? Do you think?
Personally, honestly, without being a bit controversial. I think mostly it is a bit of a boys' club. And certainly at a corporate level, I think there's room from an entrepreneurial perspective for any talent to shine. Doesn't matter colour, gender, whatever. Yeah. Even you You know, it's that whole bit. You know, even when we're
to
not
be
sure,
seen.
you know, to be confirmed. But
Do you think it's getting better, though? Do you think it's getting better? Or
you know
it
what?
doesn't really look it, though,
I
does it?
have been mansplained more times than I know what to do with. And it still happens every day.
I think it is getting better because you can go back to the old Tweed Brigade when there was no chance for a woman getting into the old estate agency. It was just really sort of like the secretaries and did it that way and bought the barber and the welly boots. But I think it is getting better. I think it's getting more inclusive.
And I think we notice it as suppliers because when we're trying to reach our target audience and what we put on exhibition stands, and Simon, you'll know this from our repick days when we were looking at what we'd put on the stand to attract people over. I think Emmeline had this idea of like a nail bar or something. And I was like, well, we're only going to have 3 people on it all day because generally speaking, it is kind of men of a certain age, all in suits, kind of, you know, and we are kind of terrible for having that out there. And, you know,
would have flushed out that other weird demographic, though, wouldn't it, as well? The others that would need their nails done that were male.
Well,
should we expose them on a later show? We'll do that on a later show.
I'll leave that one to you.
So, David, could you apologise for your industry, or are we at that point yet? Or?
I think that we need to go on record as noticing that we have a problem. I have been for a long time excluded from all of the top industry events, but since I've known you and I've tagged along to all your parties,
you're better than me.
I've noticed there's an awful lot of older white men there, so it's not a problem.
But that's the demographic as well. Going back to it, I can't remember, one of the accountancy firms did just a study of customer. Company House, and the directors, the average age of directors in the estate agency was something like 64. So it's not surprising, and you know there isn't much of a succession planning thing going on, is there? Which is quite difficult.
We've seen it really strongly in SDL from the surveying perspective, because that was a community that was, you know, on an average age of 57 and were predominantly male. And actually, we're seeing loads more women come into it at that junior level. For me, it's how we then push them up the ladder and kind of give them a hook up as well. Because, you know, when you look at on a corporate, and I'm thinking more at a corporate level, when you look at the demographics of directors, unfortunately, those people that are at a director level and financial services is just as bad as a state agency in that space.
Yeah, I think there's
women are more predominantly in HR and personnel or head of people and those sorts of roles.
That's because we're more understanding, Louise.
Yeah, well, it's because we have. I think the thing is that you have those softer skills, and there is no denying that. You know, we do a load of profiling in our business about how we get the right balance of people's traits and things like that. And
do it.
Yeah, well, you're red. We know that, and you know, you do all of those sort of, you know, disc profiling to say how do you balance up your management team. That some people have softer skills, and that's matched with, you know, serious sort of hard-nosed go-getters. Yeah. And you know what? You don't have a business, and yes, you have everything.
Kind of throw into the mix though. On the supplier side, there's far more women.
Yeah,
there are, but can I throw into the mix that might be for a reason? Because
shocking,
no,
so I'm sat here waiting to see.
Do you remember the first time that you and I ever met?
I do.
God, we're gonna have to leave the room.
I do.
So
we have a violin playing in the
you
background.
bust into my office and said, "I've been stuck in traffic for 3 hours. Can I have a wee?"
Oh, fantastic! Thanks for exposing me on air with that.
That was it.
He exposed you as well. Oh, sorry.
That came later. That was the second time I visited.
Weinstein.
No, but in general, if you're sending reps out into the world, you need them to be presentable. And in an extremely male-dominated industry, you may be forgiven for choosing female reps, thinking that that's going to appeal.
Sorry,
to
but I'm not even just talking about reps. I'm talking about business owners. You've already had Heather on here from Spectre.
Yeah,
you know, very well-spoken individual.
She's championing
and she's
our
fantastic.
world.
She's fantastic. You know, and Louise here. You know, so it's not always just about being reps as such.
I think this is a very important thing, but it leads me quite seamlessly into the next story, which was Mike Tyson was once offered a zoo attendant $10,000 to let him fight a gorilla. Yeah, so I mean,
that's $10,000.
$10,000. No, she's been shown round, and this was at the peak of his powers, and he fancied fighting a gorilla, and he tried to bribe the zoo attendant to do it, and luckily the zoo attendant didn't do it. So, what would you bribe somebody $10,000 to fight, Louise?
To fight.
Oh, wow.
A sloth.
A sloth.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
punching a
Yeah,
sloth.
no, just have a look. You know,
They
I
are.
just,
They are. That's a bit.
They're strong. They're strong, but we could have a nice cuddle
They
as
have
well.
they have a big sort of.
Yeah.
Not at all. Fight Simon Whale. I mean, we
Yeah.
did try and do that for charity once.
T-Rex
John
arms.
Paul, the cage fighter.
Oh, John Paul, I'm calling
In-
him out anytime.
in
Ooh, I'm
the
a
Sunwell.
cage fighter. I see you, John Paul. I see you. I'll take you anytime, any place.
Yeah, he really wanted to do this in a Captain Chaos
Not-
outfit. I
not-
had the music ready. I had the whole thing ready. But then I think John Paul just couldn't do it to Simon.
Yeah, look.
You know?
Well, that's not true. Jason, what would you like to? What would you like to fight? Or?
I would probably go for the judging panel at the Negotiator Awards last
Oh,
year.
oh.
I'm with him there. I am with him there.
Let me just check.
Short
I wasn't
change.
there. Thank God for that. Yeah, they were awful. Weren't they?
Awful.
Yeah,
awful.
not like the
Some wrong
judging panel at
decisions.
the Guild Awards, who were fantastic.
Oh, we had our lovely president, Lauren, on the judging panel for the Negotiator.
Oh,
Careful.
yeah, that's
I
it.
tell you what, you don't want to fight her.
No,
She's a
Geordie.
Geordie lass.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
No, Lauren well.
It's actually talking of that totally destroys our previous point, doesn't it? There, she's clearly.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So it might be in the agency wood of business owners, but I think coming out of that slightly and into suppliers and things like that, really. I mean, Katie was also the president before
Yeah,
Lauren.
she-
So there have
yeah,
been
that's-
women in that arena.
Yeah, okay. All right, okay. We've defended David's
Well,
industry there
we're-
quite well.
we're-
Who are
we're
you
gonna
going to?
continue
Who are you going to
pushing
fight? Susanna, $10,000.
I told you, because that's easy.
Can even be a fair fight.
Take him down.
I don't think you would stand a chance against a giraffe.
Why?
Where giraffe?
Well, you see, giraffe you think is a nice, docile creature. You've never
Oh,
seen
no,
it
they
attack
kick.
anybody yet, have
They
you?
kick.
Yet.
No.
But they've got obvious height advantage.
Yeah, I'm
right?
5'10", which
One
is
of
national
those-
average.
One of those legs hits you in the head. That's it. You've
You're
had
a
it.
gunner.
Well,
They're quite aggressive with their necks.
They are.
okay.
Even a
Have you
lion
seen them
won't take
mating?
one on.
No, but
With their necks.
Lots of neckage.
A lot
Yeah.
of necking action going on.
okay. Well,
Well,
red
you won't
shoes
get
on.
this on the EA podcast, will you?
Giraffe.
So,
Sex.
in other news, landlords would be better off switching to Airbnb. So,
Yep.
landlords can earn an average of £500 extra a month by renting their properties on Airbnb rather than to long-term tenants, the experts say. And those experts are Arla Property Mark, a trade body for letting agents. They say that 2.7% of the landlord population has switched from renting out homes on a long-term basis to short-term holiday homes, and this would equate to a massive 46,000 homes a year.
Wow.
So that's massive. Have you ever
Yes.
abused an Airbnb instead of a hotel room?
No, I got totally taken to pieces by an Airbnb, actually. We hired a villa in Ibiza. We were robbed on the first night and had to pay for the, the damage and everything because they thought it was an inside job. So I'm not the biggest fan of Airbnb, if I'm honest.
Well, you've heard it here first. Unless the private renting sector is made more attractive, landlords will continue to exit the market, resulting in less available properties and increased rent costs. And people like you possibly getting shortchanged. Okay. Any other news? You've got a cracking...
The John Colwell one?
Oh,
yes. So
yeah.
this is a great one. So obviously, I think there's another home down in London that's just about to go for 250 million, and John Colwell's done a similar sort of thing. This is the Phones for You fellow, isn't it? From Stoke. Obviously, questionable taste. He has smacked together two mansions in central London, and if any of you do happen to fall across the mirror, which is the best way to do it, do have a look in there and see at the house that he has put together. It's like a mix between sort of Willy Wonka and the slobs out of Harry Enfield there. So it's got all the normal stuff, there's a swimming pool, there's some things for his private cars, but then he goes a little bit further and he has like a dinner table with a little stream going underneath it with 300 carp or something like that. And anyway, my point isn't really so much about his very questionable taste. It's more £250 million for that little imagination. What would you do? And what would you have to have in your house for that sort of money?
What other than get a giraffe so that it could fight you?
If we on a nightly basis, it just like, you're seeing this as some sort of like Silence of the Lambs.
Sports,
She
yeah.
puts the lotion on her back, or else she gets the hose again. That sort of thing.
That
And this
sort of
giraffe just keeps. Whoa, just get me going now.
It's well spent, isn't
It's
it?
awful, that is.
I'm having trouble picturing this.
Can't get it out of your head now.
It is horrific.
It is. They are those evil.
I'm just
evil
focusing
giraffes.
on spending my 250 million.
Okay, well, you got 250 million. What would you have to have?
I think it would be obscene. I think
Of course,
that's the
that's the
problem.
point.
No, I know, but I don't think
So you
I
got-
could. Genuinely.
Okay.
Because I think you could have a level of luxury that you could not surpass. And I think that's what happens with people when they get an awful lot of money. Is that you lose perspective. Now, that's not saying that I would not want a lot of money.
That's a very serious answer,
but
by the way.
I know, but you know what? How is that okay? How is that okay?
Okay, well, I'm going to start because you're going down a completely different. I'm going to have a slush puppy. I want a slush puppy machine, and I want it serviced. I want a slide that comes out of the room directly into the swimming pool. I mean, that's how you start the day, isn't it? In that big style world.
Oh, all right, Louise, what would you do with 250 million that's more sensible?
That's more. Well, no, I wouldn't.
Sponsor the podcast.
I would.
Rightmove are going to beat her to it.
I would.
Up next.
You'd have to find a cause that you were passionate about because you'd still have to get up and go to work. I do think that because I think that would be rock and ruin otherwise.
Yeah, you'd go mental.
And you know what? If you had that much money, you'd want to spread the love. That's what I'd want to do.
Okay.
I mean, I would look after everybody that I love and hold dear, and I'd have some obscene things.
That's what I'm.
Of course I would.
Give me the
I'm
obscenity.
not stupid. I mean, I think I just want staff.
Would you have like Elgin marbles of yourself? That's
I want somebody to make me mashed up avocado and poached eggs every morning for breakfast. And,
oh my God!
To do my hair and make my nails pretty and all those things. And I would love to have a kick-ass business, and I'd like to employ a load of amazing women and men. Actually,
okay. I'm going to talk over you as we were just talking about there. Now, Jason, come curry house in.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's it.
An instant
Papa
curry
Dom's
house
on ready constantly.
Yeah, on click of finger.
Yeah.
And like the slobs, what did they have? It was a gold-plated lavatory that comes out in your front room.
Lovely.
But having spent a couple of days down there last week, I would probably have my own station underneath the house because Uber and black cabs are just shocking down there.
Oh, okay,
so I'd get access to the tube myself.
Making the world of commuting lovely and easy.
Build your own tube, like it.
Yeah,
build your own tube.
Perfect. Miss Mavity, what was...
Can I have a real live unicorn? I mean, that would be impressive. That flies. Well, no, obviously, no amount of money can buy that.
250 million.
We'll make you one if you want.
John's got
you get us the money, we'll worry about the unicorn.
I think
Louise... You won't see the staples.
I think Louise has already touched on it. That's amount of money is just obscene. How do you spend it? But I don't know. I think I'd have to get the guys
in. Hang on a minute. You're not sort of going into Corbyn-style territory and saying that the rich should be taxed more. You do realise you're in a very right-wing orientated industry here, Suzanna, and your leftist,
don't talk to me
Maoist views are just not fitting here.
I think
apologise.
As Louise was saying, I think you'd have to do charity work, put a lot into that. So of course. Hashtag do it for Dom here. I have to mention that. But
tax deductible.
Other than that, I think, gosh, I'd have the guys from Moneypenny come in and create my house because the innovation that's gone into that office has been amazing with their tree house and their bar built in. Yeah. Great. 10 pence a pint.
Do you know what I would do, actually? You just reminded me because he's become quite needy over the last few episodes. Got a little bit of our favourite Australian, Mr. Josh Fegan. Episode 1, the text message came through. Lot of mentions. Episode 2, less mentions. Episode 3, slight mention. Episode 4, no mention. I like the fact that he's getting quite needy now. So even Josh...
I just love the fact that we have at least one listener that we know
looks
about.
Good, isn't it? That we can be sure of. So here's a shout out to Josh. And if I had my 250 million, it would be so we could have a little room and we could just Skype each other.
And you could
you couldn't do
save
that
koala
anyway.
bears together and things like that.
Do whatever we wanted to do in our little reality.
Right. What I'd do is I would buy Tom Panos and Josh Fegan, have them fight each other. Who do you think would win in a fight between Panos and Fegan?
Oh my God, that's too awful to even think about. That's like Kong against Godzilla.
It's massive. It's immense.
Yeah, I reckon Panos has got a nut on him. I reckon that.
I reckon.
I think they'd.
I think Josh is fast.
He's got endurance as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's a biter.
But he has too much that avocado. He can't. He'd go too early.
So, Josh, if you're listening, please email us and let us know your thoughts on how long Panos would last.
Yeah. And what's your special move? We do need to know what's your special move.
Street Fighter. I'm telling you, he's a biter. He's a biter.
Literally just latched on. That's terrible. Awful.
Ankles. Fire. Okay, in the more relevant news, I think Foxtons reveals a £2.7 million cost of tenancy fees ban. Now, I think this is something that we're going to see now, because I think it's been long enough since the tenancy fee
What
ban.
do you mean, everyone clearing out their decks in terms of how much?
Basically, I think that we're going to see some figures mentioned from all the major, certainly the more corporate entities are going to start to talk about.
Am I
the
being
costs.
naive? Hadn't most of them got their place in order before that?
Do you know what? I think as an agent, I think it's so hard to supplement that income in one go in the concentrated manner that
you can't just go from one to another and say you're going to do
you need to
utilities
diversify a bit, and there's things that agents are doing to try and replace this income. Foxtons have dealt with things quite well. They've got some innovative ways of handling repair charges and having to sort of reveal those up front to the customer and how do they swallow them. But I think you're going to see more of these figures reported, and I think we just need to get them out of the way and move on, because it's reality now.
One big flush.
I don't think we're ever going back. Boris promised me that he was going to,
you see,
bring back my letting fees.
I think, like Whaley said, I think a lot of the good ones got it all in their shipping order before it all kicked off, but a lot of them went down the referral route as well, didn't they? Now that's going to be looked at. So it's back at sea again, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hang on, you've just filled me full of absolute horror, given that the entire Kerfuffle model is built on referrals. What?
Apparently getting a referral fee is okay as long as you declare.
I'll call it something else, consultancy.
As long as everybody knows what you're earning, and you've got to declare it to the person that is buying the service and also the person that is giving you
in
that
disappearing ink.
Yeah.
Is that still okay?
That's still okay.
Okay, good.
They've not banned disappearing ink yet.
That's great. Okay.
It is. It's all. I think it's all hinges on that transparency bit, because, as you say, some agents kind of got a workaround and they covered things off in different ways, whether there is putting references elsewhere and all sorts of things that they did. And you know what? And sometimes they will do, like you said with Foxtons, who knows some of the stuff that goes on in that industry that did need a level of cleaning up from a tenancy point of view, because there were agents that dragged it all down for everybody.
But it's the minority again.
And it always is. And actually, it is the majority of those agents that are struggling. And it is hard to make a buck in this place, because in that industry and the way we're at, it is a bit like business prevention, I think, from our,
certainly feels it the last few years, isn't it?
It really is, because, in terms of
everywhere.
what they do from, like, as you say, repairing fees and maintenance and things like that, it was standard. Yeah. Even 5 years ago, everybody stuck 10% on and charged it on to the landlords, and everybody knew that was what was happening.
But that gives us the perfect segue, of course, doesn't it? Because every silver lining... What is it? No, it's the cloud.
Has a cloud.
Yes, a cloud.
We can edit that bit out, right?
What a fuck.
We'll get there. Let's go again from the perfect segue.
I'm not bothered about it. We're just going to carry on going. So we have here today Jason and Louise from wonderful SDL. And it's worth pointing out you are a multifaceted business, aren't you? Because you are a spectacular agency in your own right. In terms of there, big in auctions, in terms of there. I believe you have the franchise for Century 21 in the UK as well over here. And you also have a B2B service as well, which is going from strength to strength for agents. So do you want to just give us a bit of a background yourselves, where you've both done? Should we start with Louise? As we say, obviously we've got to...
Ladies first.
Of course.
Always, thanks. I'll take it. It's my 10th year at SDL this year, actually. So I've been there a while, actually.
Gold watch.
I know. And it is that sort of, it's a business that's moved on and grown really rapidly, certainly in the last 5 years. And I've been lucky enough to see that journey from a property perspective in surveying and financial services. And then we went into that more direct property market ourselves. And the part of the business that Jason and I work for now is focused on that it's predominantly a B2B environment, other than our established room auctions. Yep. And then we also have a large build-to-rent portfolio as well, which is, it's actually one of the fastest growing build-to-rent portfolios that's on the go at the moment. And that's a huge opportunity when you look at that renting community of people being able to rent houses. Yeah. Because, we are pushing landlords out of it. because why would you do that? There is much easier ways now it's better putting it in the pension, whereas we've gone full circle to do that. So it's a big part of our business. And then within that property management sector, we've got the side of the business within auctions where Jason and I's focuses are on around growing that national business that says, how do we reach a more modern consumer that looks for something different? But actually our solution isn't around consumers in that space, it's around estate agents, and that's where Jason's strength has come from.
So your route to market is still going through the agents too?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned there you're looking for a sort of different sort of of client per se. Are you talking there more about literally digitally online auctioneering as well, or how much room is there still for classic boardroom style auctioneering?
Yeah, I mean we've still got very, very strong rooms in the Midlands and the North. This year we're going to be doing 36 live events, so we're kind of holding our own in that market. I was talking to David Sandeman last week, and he was explaining that majority of ballroom auctions are on the decline. We've kind of just steadied up, so I look at it as though we've grown because they're going down and we're staying where we are.
Yeah, of course.
So it's still a good way of selling. It's a different and it's a diverse market. So we're very lucky because we've got a really strong B2B, but we do actually do B2C as well for certain types of clients as well. For councils that have to dispose of things, they will predominantly want to put it into a room, so we'll always do it that way. But at the same point, people will come to us direct because we just launched a Sell for Free campaign. So people are coming to us direct, we're instructing it, and then we're passing it back to our partner agents as well. So we're actually a supplier of auctions, but we're also a supplier of properties for them as well. So we're literally walking through to a lot of our partners and giving, there you go, there's a minimum of £2,500 worth of fees for you. But it's just looking at the market, and we're always trying to innovate, but to innovate auctions is quite difficult because it's been going since the year dot. And Andy Parker, our MD, always says it's the second oldest business in the world, and it used to help the first oldest to get the best price. But it's changing. More and more people are literally just buying and doing it all on the phone these days, and it's just trying to keep up with people's wants and needs. But there's always going to be that customer service.
How much is it changing from the old view of auctions used to be about selling the crap at the bottom, or you'd get something at the very top, isn't it? It's certainly really broken out of that now, hasn't it? In terms of their and I think one of the interesting things is everyone was paying such a huge amount of attention to the online agents, and we were monitoring 5-6% of the market, 7% of the market, and what everyone missed actually was the amount going via auctions, the variety of there was going up to, I'm right in thinking 8-9% sort of starting to, and it's only showing one direction north, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if you go back probably 5 years, I think the auction market took about 2% of the whole amount of sales. So it's grown and grown and grown.
So that's a far bigger demographic change, isn't it? In terms of, and actually, I would suggest deserves more attention than it does. And we keep talking about, we've spoken about fighting two of our best Australian training gurus over there. But one of the biggest things, of course, is everyone's looked enviously across at the way they do auctions over there, and certainly in the main conurbations, you would just do it via auction, month tight campaign, launch it, and obviously, and then you sold there 80%, 85%, isn't it, before it goes back inside and probably sells again. And it's always been a bit of a mystery why we can't get the same here.
Absolutely, and I can't remember the chap that did the EA Masters last year, the Australian
Michael Pallier, or.
But he came and he was amazed that we didn't do more auctions.
They all come over here and just say,
and they can't understand sales progression at all over here, can they? When they come over, I can remember drawing
I
it. I remember drawing it on a whiteboard and them all sitting there with their head in the hand.
It's also very different in terms of where you're allowed to do an auction here. Because most commercial leases, it's boring now, but most commercial leases ban you from holding an auction within the premises without express permission. And in Australia, they do a lot of that.
They do it, and it's fantastic.
They do it in the street, which I think is phenomenal.
Alexander Phillips.
That's okay under the sun, isn't it? But doing it in England,
that's not going to be very good.
Cheadle in Manchester in the pouring rain.
I did ask them about this, and they whispered, I said, it does rain here
Yeah.
It does.
So you can go inside, for example, and do it everything else there. But I've sat in there, and it's more than that. It's the absolute, when you're doing it on somebody's house, it's the sheer street theatre of it. I mean, it's obviously there for an absolute purpose there. But what is absolutely fantastic is to get around all of the neighbours. You would, a lot of agents over here would talk about them sticky beat neighbours paying attention. It's actively encouraged
Wheel 'em
over
in,
there.
that's what they
because
want.
that's your next client. If they can see a fantastic job that you're doing there, whether it's at an open house and the road's suddenly full of other traffic there, because they've all come to see what a great job you do. Why would you not?
Curtain twitchers are the original
Twitchers
Facebook.
That's it.
Better than Rightmove for getting your property out there.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think the main thing with it is it's still an education process, and obviously what Lou and I have been trying to do is champion the fact that it's just not just for those rundown desperation types of properties. It's just a way of doing it. And one of my favourite lines is the Estate Agency Act 1979 states if you're offering a property for sale, all avenues of sale must be made open to the client. And then but as agents, all we do is just generally default to private treaty. It's like if you go into the pub, I mean, this does actually happen as well. And somebody says, I don't want an alcoholic drink, they'll always default to a Coke. Don't they? Because that's what
not in my round they won't.
Exactly.
So let me ask you, so are we talking about the modern method of auction?
Auction.
You've seen a
I
proliferation
think predominantly.
of that, haven't you?
I think predominantly because what that does is that.
Can we explain this? Because there will be some people out there that won't be aware. I won't do it because I'll get lost straight away. So somebody who knows what they're talking about.
So it's essentially in the old school way of auctioning a property, it would be an unconditional sale, and on the fall of the hammer, you would exchange contracts, and then you would complete 28 days further down the road. Yep. With an unconditional sale, you essentially put down a reservation fee for that property. You then have 28 days to exchange and then a further 28 days to complete. And what that does is this is about opening up the market, because it is not everybody that can buy at auction. Whereas doing a conditional sale, it's less scary for the vendors, for starters, because we're talking about when it's people's homes in that environment. And essentially, they have time to think, oh, my God, I might be moving house in 56 days. But also, about 60%, if I'm guessing my facts about right, go with a mortgage lender that we sell. 64%. So a lot of our
sales... So this perception that you've got to have all the money in your back pocket.
You know that it's always a buyer beware world on anything like that. It's always there is, once you pay that reservation fee, if you do not go on to exchange and complete, you've lost that money, and that's the hurt money. But this business has come out of a flawed private treaty process.
Yes, of course.
That's what it has, and that's where we're very different to our colleagues in Europe. From a real estate market perspective, and certainly in Australia, where about 50% of properties sell by auction, because they don't have the same trouble we have. And that's our opportunity pot, is to talk to the people that, it's never about that distressed property. It's not just about death and divorce and debt nowadays. It really isn't. It's about a motivated vendor. That's where our education program comes in, because that's massive. And the agents that, that we all work with and Jason's team work with, it's about helping them realise there's another way.
Just to be clear, and ultimately the buyer pays the fee.
Yep.
So surely that's got to be just the most fantastic asset for any agent bemoaning the fact that they're up against the online agencies, or even just people taking, cutting fees down to nothing. Yeah. You do have the ability to say, well, there is Mr. Vendor a way that actually you don't have to pay anything, and you've got everything in your kit bag, then, haven't you, to pivot them which way.
But that will have to go hand in hand with an education process. So that you guys
and
is
that
evaluation?
Is that
evaluation process?
Is that education process for both the agents and the consumer?
Definitely.
I think the agents, for the most part, are in the dark as much as the vendors are. But I think if agents were able to have that conversation with a vendor and say, look, there is another way, it doesn't make you desperate to go down this route. It makes you a motivated seller, but you're going to have a beginning and an end that you can put a timer on. And I think, a happy finish, which is so important in every industry, but particularly ours. And I think one of the things that really, this is probably a precursor of changes that we're going to see in the house selling process in general, is that people want to see this complicated structure of where it takes sort of 3 months to push a deal through.
Just not good enough, is it?
Particularly the agents.
You wish.
They
It's
want to
not
know-
3 months, is
No,
it? That's
it's
the
not.
thing. It's 6
It's not.
months.
It's not.
6 months and 24 days was the last stats that came out from marketing to close. And when you look at a business churn that's at best twice a year. And the bit that I feel very passionate about from an estate agency perspective is that when anything goes wrong in that process, they get the blame.
Yeah.
They get the crap. And you know what? It's largely not their fault because there's no hurt money. The buyer can pull out anytime they want. The vendor can change their mind. You can gazump, you can gazunder, you can get a crap solicitor, and they've screwed the whole thing up.
And mostly the people that end up losing in that process are the agents because they're working entirely at risk.
For nothing.
Yeah.
So are there many agents, do you think, out there that don't get involved, we don't contact you because they're a little embarrassed that they don't understand it? Is there that almost like professional pride element there?
I think
because I've heard
there
a lot
is.
of when you sometimes you speak to somebody, you get people sneering a little bit, don't you, about auctions, and it always strikes me as that's an automatic reaction rather than having thought it through. Because I just can't possibly understand. I mean, there are pros and minuses on each system, and that's natural. But standing up by itself, it's just a totally logical way to sell your home.
Yeah, I think it is an education process, and I think it is more an education process to our industry as well and our agents, because I've never met the second best estate agent because they're always the best one. So in order to try and educate the best person, it's very, very difficult. Everybody remembers auctions back in 2008, 2009 after the crash, that it was for the crap, just to get rid of all those repos. Yeah. It's certainly changed now. And what a lot of agents forget is they're currently doing auctions in their everyday business as well, with best and finals and sealed bids. Yeah. They're auctions, but they're absolutely closed.
And that is the difference that we've seen. All of those companies that used to effectively, they used to be administrators for the banks and they used to auction the properties. So that conflict of interest went out the window, but they used to do it. Those companies are not filling auction rooms anymore, but you guys are.
I mean, and from a personal point of view, if we look at year-on-year business, we've grown the business by 94% in what was perceived as a downward market last year. For us, it wasn't a downward market because we identified where people had an issue, and that was the sellers, because it was taking too long. Yeah. It was falling through all the time, and we just changed the way that agents thought about it. Threw it to us. We sold them quickly.
And you've had some tremendous wins. I mean, you've had the biggest one of all, I believe. Congratulations. You've got countrywide, I think, in terms of rolling out across the board.
We do. 2020 is the year to start that rollout. We had a successful pilot in the sort of second half of last year. And
so even the corporates really willingly embracing these, all of these. And that'll be a ripple effect out, won't there, from that through into the independents as well, those that haven't already seen the light, as it were.
So let's ask you, which of our Kerfuffle listeners are you looking to hear from? So who's your
ideal, either in the part of the country or the type of agent?
All
not
of
allowed.
them.
Yeah.
All of them. Get off this fence. We're slightly different because we don't actively go out there and push ourselves. I think we've probably given away more dogs and things like that than we've
just
sold
clarify
houses, to be honest.
That's not real dogs.
Not real dogs, no. But everybody will know of our dogs.
Puppy dogs. Would you like to see my puppies?
It's very, very nice to get, obviously, countrywide.
Did you hear that, Overman? You're not getting that on the EA podcast.
We've got... not focus on my puppies, please.
Well, not till later, anyway.
Please. We have such a mix, and I think that's the thing. We've got some of our top agents are serious one-man bands, and then we've got some that will do 5% of their transactional volume through us. So it is such a mix, and they're on a journey just as we are. Yeah. We didn't have all the answers when we started this. We've all learning together as we grow, and things will change because I know sort of people talked about reservation fees and the fee structures, whether it's people are now coming off the fence about don't go to the cheapest agent in town, and amen to that. But you know what, 1%'s not enough for the work you get. From properly when you get into that space. It really isn't. And for me, this is a way of securing better fees for the job.
You need, first of all, you need much higher fees to pay, of course, for these other suppliers.
Yeah.
These suppliers like, should we mention?
I think it's a good time to bring Acaboom into
shouldn't
the
we?
conversation.
We need you to explain yourself why they're spending all this money on wonderful products like Acaboom. Hello, Suzanna. Welcome to the show. You obviously have have been now at the Acaboom business now for a couple of years, I believe. Is that right?
No.
No. What do you mean?
It's not been that long. It's not been long. It's been about a year, but thank you. Feels like that long.
It's been a great year.
Were you doing that for the tax man? Right, anyway, let's talk you through. Tell everybody what Acaboom does.
So Acaboom's essentially about winning more instructions. So it's helping that agent who's got the lead in through maybe a Spectre or marketing that's out there. They're booking the market appraisal in, and it's that strong market appraisal process that'll help you win that instruction and be different, be better than the competing agent that's going out
and
there.
why do they need this? Because they're not being different at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, we've got so many statistics around this, but I mean, 91% of estate agents in the UK send a letter after a market appraisal. So typically it's called a valuation letter, and they'll either post that out or turn it into a PDF and attach it to an email. It's usually being produced by whichever CRM.
Now, is this a real statistic, not like how I used to teach you to do statistics?
No, it's a real statistic.
The random number generator? Yeah, no, okay. So this is a real one?
Yes.
And you can back this up?
Yes.
Good, okay, that's good. Well, good, because wouldn't like there to be any unseemly legal case off the back of that statistic. Good, okay, that's good. But you've got some real fantastic, first of all, clients using it, or at least I believe actually you guys use it in the room here. Is it? If you could come around now and say this is rubbish, this would be the greatest.
We were early adopters.
Were you on board with it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And actually,
service.
as an interesting thing, because as a company, I think it's fair to say you do a lot internally as well. So you must have seen real benefit in this by going out there. Yeah,
it's the follow. It's the classic sales follow up, and that's the bit I think where estate agents that are progressive that see it. It just leaves you in a really strong position and a really credible position. That's why I thought it was great.
I mean, the point I was making there before Simon spoke over me as usual was the fact 91% of estate agents do send this valuation letter out, and Acaboom's all about sending a proposal afterwards instead. So it's a bespoke proposal with statistics in and relevant information for that particular vendor or landlord. And that does make a huge difference to if you've had 3 estate agents in come and do a market appraisal, 2 of them have sent you a letter that has no images in, typically just confirms the fees, and then they get a bespoke proposal with all these statistics in that are relevant for them, very visual. It just blows them out the water, the competition. So it is about standing out at various points throughout the market appraisal. But that key follow-up, like Louise has just pointed out, is one of the major ones. And of course, then, you know, you move on to tracking and the agent knowing when to call them.
And the tracking, slightly stalky though it is amazing.
Yeah,
isn't
It's awesome to know what they've
it is
done,
just
what they've looked
I
at.
mean, I always love the ones though that it's not so much the ones that are active; it's the ones that haven't done anything for a while and then passive, you know, are passive, and then suddenly just start looking at this stuff again, and you happen to get in touch.
68.
The phone starts ringing as they're reading it.
Hello.
Yeah, so 68% of vendors will make a decision within a month after the market appraisal. I mean, of course, ideally, we go in on the day, don't we? And we win it there and then. You know, we don't need an aftermath process, but that actually only happens on average about 7% of the time. So that aftermath
You're
for the
really
first
throwing
month,
these stats around here. It's really impressive.
so for the first month, that follow-up period is crucial. But then what about all the other business after that sits on the table for sort of up to 12 months? And typically, let's face it, I can say this because I'm a salesperson myself, as a valuer, a salesperson.
Third best salesperson in the industry on the supplier side.
Oh, you number
of the last
4?
rankings.
One of my favourites.
One of your favourites.
Oh, yes.
So
Sold me jet.
Yeah, but you haven't bought. Why haven't you bought Acaboom yet then?
I'm going to tell you why.
Whoa!
Because we've not bought it yet. Is the answer to that.
Well, you've just done your
It's a
negotiation.
great product.
No,
it's a
good
great
there.
product, and we really want it.
I was just quite
In
interested.
general,
Is it because you got too much on? Is that one of the issues with it, or?
I think agents have to choose which bits of tech everything's on subscription.
And get that settled.
Correct, and bed it in and work out which part of the process they're weak on. Now, I think most of the agents will buy a product that will give them a a better chance of winning a valuation. So it's all about instructions. And in fact, I think it's probably one of agents' biggest failings is that we tend to sort of focus on that end of it.
Because you get a small increase in conversion on that element of it, and you're...
Yeah. But I mean, any rep that comes in from any prop tech firm, if they walk in,
what do they say?
And they say, "Hey,
just one more
instruction."
Hey.
No, but you speak to people at Rightmove, Zoopla, whoever. All they're trying to sell you are tools that you can win more business with. Now, part of that process is the follow up. So, have they heard from you?
Yeah.
What sort of conversation are you having with them? And is there anything that makes you stand out from the other agents? If you haven't managed to do that in the room, you're going to have to do it afterwards, and you're going to have to keep in touch. And that's one of the great things that Acaboom do. Now, I've seen some of the agents that really harness this, and we weren't in the position to do it at the time, but we may be in the very near future. Thanks for that, Simon.
Yeah, booked in for a call on Friday, no problem.
Talk us through that element there. Sorry, he was just talking about, we know there's some great agents out there like Thomas Morris, I believe, ran and he was shouting from the hilltops about you. So talk us through some of the effects that Simon Bradbury's got.
Oh, well, the lovely Simon Bradbury wrote his own case study on Acaboom and surprised me with it
The lovely
at the RAN
Simon
conference.
Bradbury also calls himself the lovely Simon Bradbury.
He does, and I keep telling him I'm his favourite supplier, but he keeps saying money penny is, so I'm not quite sure what I'm doing wrong there. But he wrote his own case study on it, and what he did was he measured his conversion rates before and after implementing Acaboom, and he increased it in a 9-month period by 17%. Now, for an award-winning agency like that, obviously backed by Julian O'Dell, TM Training, and won the State Agency of the Year.
They were already good before that.
Yeah, they were good before. So it's not like we're talking about a little backstreet office somewhere that hasn't necessarily achieved big things already. We're talking about a leading brand there that managed to take themselves up by 17%.
I think what's really interesting there, though, as well, you mentioned Julian, and quite often this doesn't all happen by itself, does it? Simon was there working as a campaign across the business, working with deciding that this was an issue, understanding that Acaboom was the tool to be able to drive that information, using Julian there, because ultimately the people who need to implement it are the ones that the values are going out. And unless you have all those elements working together, quite often you do get that kind of, it hasn't worked for me routine.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more with that, because that 17% increase wasn't just all down to buying Acaboom and then great, it goes up 17%. A lot of training went into that and getting them to use the product right, because tech can't do your job for you. You can buy these things, but essentially, you've got to use them. And we get great feedback about Acaboom as a product. The only time it doesn't work as well for people, being really honest, is where they just haven't used it. They've stayed with their traditional methods of sending letters and doing those things, and the staff haven't really embraced the product. Where they do,
we were guilty of that to start with, purely because the complexity of our business and how we rolled that out. So although when Jason and I both saw it, and I remember that day well in
Birmingham, I remember it.
It was exciting, and it was that sort of we press go, we're in that. And then you suddenly go, right, okay, how do you implement this so it has the right impact? And that's the catch with anything.
Susanna told me that it wasn't actually in budget at that stage, but you said that you had to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's nice, isn't it? That's not bad.
We were empowered to be able to play some tunes,
Right, okay, Susanna, what have you got for our Kerfuffle listeners? What are you going to do for them?
Well, obviously you didn't prep me for this, but
you've already got an offer. Come on, give us the offer. Well, you've got the Kickstart. Talk us through the Kickstart.
So with the Kerfuffle package, you've got the Kickstarter package, which is where we get your old valuations. These are basically where you've already been out to do a market appraisal and you've not won it yet. Maybe it's gone on the market with somebody else or just hasn't come to market. What we'll do is we'll get those from you, and we'll send them all a proposal, a refreshed proposal, if you like, on the latest stats in the market, your fees and why they should use you, really. We have done that with an agency already. They actually did it themselves, actually. That's where we got the idea from. Not that we stole it at all. But they put in 120 old market appraisals. And within 4 days, they'd won 6 new instructions.
So did you hear it there, Kerfuffle members? Write into podcast@kerfuffle.it. You are guaranteed 6 listings from Acaboom with everyone there. This is an absolute guaranteed offer, and we would love your feedback when it all goes right.
Being a member of Kerfuffle, you save, what's that figure you quote, £150,000 a year on suppliers?
And so now we've got to go to the break.
We'll be hearing more from Simon's lawyers after the break. Thank you very much, everybody.
You all. Very kind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone's kerfuffling.